consider approving the February 2nd, 2023 business session minutes.
Very good. All right. Next on the agenda, I'd like to ask the clerk to read item number 2 into the record.
Resolution number 010-23, consider City of Olathe application number SU 19-0008 for a renewal of a special use permit, SUP, for a quarry and accessory construction and demolition landfill operation for a 7-year term on 244 acres located at the southeast corner of 159th Street and Old 56 Highway in Olathe, Kansas, within 1 mile of the New Century Air Center.
Thank you very much. I believe we have Michelle Leininger here from the Planning Department with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is specifically a review for airport compatibility for projects within 1 mile of New Century Air Center. This is a Olathe application for a special use permit renewal. This project and this activity has been in operation since the 1990s. The request is to continue the operation within the city of Olathe. And the city has approved the 7-year term of the special use permit. The item was heard, the property is within the airport interest area. However, it is not within the runway protection zone. It is outside the primary flight corridor and outside of the noise impact area. Item was heard at the January 25th Airport Commission, where it was unanimously recommended for approval with stipulations as recommended by staff. No members of the public spoke regarding this item. However, there was one submitted written comment which notified us and the commission of a pending lawsuit on the project with the quarry and the city of Olathe. Is determined this litigation does not affect the airport compatibility review. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Allenbrand, this is your district.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple of things. One is, has it always been that many years on a special permit, special use?
They're typically not a odd amount. Typically, they're 10 years, 5 years, something like that. Their permit actually expired in like 2020, sorry. And they've been working with the city to get the renewal done. So since it took a few more years, they renewed it for 7 years. So it would have been a total of 10.
So the city of Olathe agreed to that?
That was what they approved.
Because my concerns is just making sure that they're, not blasting on the weekends and certain times of the day, because it is disruptive to the people that live there, so.
And that was all part of their plan. That is not changing when they're blasting and such. They do notice, the airport gets notice. There's little to no effect to the blasting on the airport.
I mean, I feel their pain, but, when you do move there, that quarry's been there, I don't even know how many years, way before my time, so, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner O'Hara.
So this is a quarry and a landfill for construction products, like the sheetrock and
Yes.
lumber and
Yes.
roofing materials and this, that, and the other. Has there been an issue with sulfur dioxide out there? Because the Apex landfill, the reason I'm asking at 159th and Metcalf, there is a real issue with the smell of sulfur in that area, and it's been going on for quite some time. And I was just curious, has this been an issue out in that landfill? Do you know?
I do not know. That was not a part of our review.
Okay. Well, and that comes from sheetrock, as sheetrock is deteriorating, it lets out the sulfur dioxide. And I did not know that. I just thought it was naturally occurring over there, but no, it's from the landfill at 159th and Metcalf. So I was just curious. Thank you.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Mr. Chair, one comment. I've never heard anything, I'm glad you brought it up. I have never heard anything about, or anybody complaining about smell. And I've been, visited it and have seen it. The biggest complaints I get have been on the blasting. And then depending on the blasting can also be for the aviation center, the kind of puts fog for a short amount of time, so.
All right. Well, I appreciate the discussion. I am comforted that the Airport Commission, the Olathe Planning Commission, and the Olathe City Council all supported this action, and it comes, and the county staff has also approved it with the stipulations recommended for us. This is a planning item, so it's going to stay on action. And we look forward to discussing it next week. Thank you very much, Michelle. Would the clerk read item number 3 into the record?
Resolution number 014-23, consider City of Overland Park application numbers PLT 2022-00068 and PLT 2022-0069 for a preliminary and final plat for Mills Village for 31 single-family lots on 11 acres located at the northeast and southeast corners of the 167th Street and Corvera Road, Overland Park, Kansas, and located within 1 mile of the Johnson County Executive Airport.
Thank you very much. We have Diane Wickland from the Planning Department here to discuss this resolution. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you. Diane Wickland, Planning Department. The subject property is located at the northeast and southeast corners of 167th and Quivira Road, as shown here on the vicinity map. The subject property is located within the City of Overland Park and is located within 1 mile of the Executive Airport, which is why the application is before you for review of airport compatibility. The application is for a preliminary and final plat for Mills Village for 31 single-family lots on 11 acres. Here's an aerial view of the subject property outlined in blue and within that red circle. And here's a copy of the preliminary plat, and then also the final plat. The subject property is not located within the area designated by the county as airport interest area, and the property is also not located within the flight corridor and not within the area of noise impacts. Planning staff recommends approval, and the Airport Commission also recommended approval of the preliminary and final plats with stipulations and had no concerns or issues with the application. Also to note that there were no members of the public that spoke at the Airport Commission on this application. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioner O'Hara, it's your district. Any comments or questions?
Oh, I'm totally in support of this.
Very good. Wow. Any questions, other questions or concerns? Well, Ms. Wickland, I do appreciate the Airport Commission's work recommending approval with the recommended stipulations that we have in our packet. So this is a planning item. It'll stay on action, and we look forward to discussing it next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If the clerk would read item number 4 into the record, please.
Consider authorizing a license agreement with the City of Lenexa, Kansas for the purpose of MedAct co-location at Station 93 and to provide usable space outlined in Exhibit A for the MedAct personnel ambulance response vehicles, equipment, and supplies for a term of 10 years with a one-time payment to the City of Lenexa in the amount of $573,196 to be effective April 1st, 2023, and authorizing a use of general fund reserves in an amount not to exceed $573,196.
Thank you very much. Paul Davis from the Department of Emergency Services is back with us this afternoon. Mr. Davis, welcome.
Thank you. Commissioners, next week we're going to be asking for your approval for a license agreement with the City of Lenexa at Station 93 at 24,000 Prairie Star Parkway, where MEDAC paramedics and EMTs and ambulance and other resources are currently housed. So MEDACT occupies a portion of this station using dedicated space for MEDACT operations and shared space for training and other joint activities. The MEDAC crews at this station serve about 37,000 residents in western Lenexa, northwestern Olathe, and the city of DeSoto and the unincorporated areas of Johnson County in the northwestern part of the county. So MEDACT and the Lenexa Fire Department, along with the city of Lenexa, believe an agreement is mutually beneficial. And much collaboration has occurred to arrive at standardizing co-location agreements throughout the county. As you're aware, we brought other agreements before you over the last couple of years. This item will appear on the action agenda for the city on March 7th. Originally planned for the 21st of February, it's moved to March 7th. So we're recommending approval of this agreement with the city of Lenexa for a period of 10 years, as indicated, with funds to be appropriated from the general fund reserves in amount not to exceed $573,196. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. The $573,196 was calculated based on the square footage that the county, or excuse me, MEDAC would be utilizing at the facility?
That's correct. It's the system that facilities has put in place for these agreements, taking into account our dedicated space, our shared space, and apparatus space.
What would be the ongoing obligations fiscally for the county over the 10-year period?
This is it at this point, unless there is some major event that affects us both. Lenexa chooses to be a turnkey landlord, if you will, meaning if there's a repair that needs to be made, they prefer to do that instead of put that burden back on the county. But the agreement does allow for those conversations to occur.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Commissioner O'Hara?
Just a question as to why this wasn't in the budget and that it's being funded by reserves.
So this finally came to us. We've been working on this for a little while, and we just haven't got the agreement in place. So, and the other agreements have also been funded by general fund reserves, not something that we could accommodate within our operational budget, as we've transferred those obligations for facilities management, maintenance to the facilities department a few years ago.
Commissioner Hanslick, then Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you. How long have we been co-located there already, if you don't mind?
Several years, at least as long as the station has been there. I wouldn't say a decade, but we've been there for quite a while.
No, I appreciate it. 'Cause I think it's important to note this is not a new collaboration. It's been ongoing.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, I have a number of incidental questions, so maybe before next week we could visit a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see further questions from Mr. Davis at this time, but I imagine based on the incidental questions, we're going to go ahead and keep this one on action. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Would the clerk read item number 5 into the record, please?
Consider approving a memorandum of understanding, MOU, between the Johnson County Board of County Commissioners and the cities of Merriam, Mission, Roland Park, Fairway, Westwood, Westwood Hills, and Mission Woods, Kansas, to provide crisis intervention assistance services.
We have Mr. Tanner Fortney from the Department of Mental Health here to discuss this item with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tanner Fortney, Mental Health. So I think, as most of you know, we've been operating what we call our co-responder program, where we have clinicians that are actually embedded within law enforcement agencies throughout Johnson County. And those individuals provide crisis assistance so that whenever there are 911 calls for individuals that are in crisis and it requires a police response or a first responder response, our staff go out with them to be able to hopefully de-escalate the individual and divert them from higher levels of care, such as the emergency room, incarceration, or Osawatomie State Hospital. This program has been in existence since 2011. It actually began with a grant through the city, with the city of Olathe, and it's grown since to include almost every jurisdiction within Johnson County. And with that in mind, it's been in place now for about 11, 12 years, and over that time, it's slowly grown to include all those cities, and as it would grow, we would individually contract with the cities themselves. So we have a lot of contracts that have been put in place over these years. Well, as a result of that, because all the different cities have kind of their own nuances, if you will, and they have their ways of doing things, we have had to kind of tailor some of the way we provide these services and tailor each of these agreements to be somewhat unique with the city's needs and desires. So what we've been trying to do, though, is over the last year, we've been having some discussions about this, and we've now been working with the legal staff in order to try to update some of these agreements so that, one, we can try to eliminate as much variation as possible in the contracts and try to make them all as homogeneous as we can. And also, there's been just over the years different things as we've grown this program from the ground up, built it from the ground up. We've just found different things that we've learned and the cities have learned as we've gone through it. So before you today is the first of our cleaned up contracts, hopefully, which is with the Northeast cities. And I do not have the final version of that contract before you in the packet this week. I will next week. There were some final things that were being finalized with the legal department and our staff and the cities, but we should have that available to you before. The main changes, aside from just kind of having some of that cleanup and that variation, is also in this particular contract, because it involves a consortium of cities. The prorated shares that each of those cities pay for the co-responder, those have to be updated, as well as just a few other changes with some signature blocks and things of that nature. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any. Oh, I would make one last comment. There are no additional positions that are associated with this agreement, and there's no county funds that are being expended beyond what we already do. So apologize. With that, I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fortney. Commissioner Fast and Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, I know these, the Northeast cities, were talking about a second co-responder. It's not clear in this. Are you just cleaning up the agreement, or is this for the second one, or we've already approved the second one? I'm
Yeah,
confused.
this is just cleaning up the agreement. This won't impact adding additional co-responders.
Have we added that second one? Because they were deliberating it during their budgets, Mission, Roland Park, Merriam, to add a second one. Did that not come through?
I don't think we've brought that before the board yet.
Okay, can you find out?
I will
'Cause
check on
know
that, but
all
I
the
don't
cities
think
were
we've
talking
added
about
a
it.
position on that one yet. But
And would it be possible, now, I used to know exactly, well, so Mission Hills, Prairie Village has their own now, Leawood has their own. Can you make me a chart, like how many, since, I have so many cities, so I remember how, the co-responders per city, and the sheriff has 2 now, is it?
Correct.
I would appreciate just a chart, so I know.
And, yeah, I think countywide, that'd be well received.
I think I'd be interested in that, too.
Commissioner Myers.
I think you hit on most of my question. All I can say is that I know that I've heard nothing but positive response from anybody that's been involved in this program, and I just wanted to make sure there wasn't any major discrepancy from, let's say, the city of Shawnee versus the other cities, but it sounds like they're all going to be as closely related as possible.
yes, where some of the differences really come into play, for example, is in some of the larger cities, they actually provide vehicles through their police department for the co-responders because they want them driving their vehicles. A lot of the smaller jurisdictions, they don't have that luxury, and so we lease vehicles through mental health that have our branding on them, and they use those when they go out. There's also been a few things over the years where originally, when a lot of these agreements started, laptop computers were paid for by the cities. Well, because of issues with HIPAA and 42 CFR and confidential information on their end, we have to have our own laptop, and the cities have to provide their own laptop because the systems can't interface for a lot of legal and privacy reasons.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fortney, I very much appreciate you attempting to develop a standardized approach dealing with the communities. I think administratively, you're well within your rights, but I also very much appreciate your customer-centric considerations that not all cities are the same. They can't do it the same, and so I commend you for that. One question, though. So how do the cities measure success with this program? Obviously, they're funding it and they're supporting it, but do they provide any metrics that give us some sense of, well, maybe your community should have 5 rather than 2, or Maybe you don't need 3, maybe you only need 1. What are the metrics for this, or are there any?
Yeah, so we track some of that data in conjunction with the law enforcement agencies. Really, the basic measure of success is diversions from higher level of care. When our folks show up, the goal is we don't want them to be taken to the emergency room or to jail or to the Osawatomie State Hospital or any other type of setting like that. We want to be able to de-escalate the situation, be able to have them remain in the home. The other piece we look at is we also look, our co-responders, in addition to following up at those, going out on those calls, after an incident has occurred, they also follow up as best they can with those individuals and their families to try to help them to get into mental health services. So we also look to see how many people are getting into those services. As far as the question about what happens on as far as staffing and how do we know how many, that's really city-driven. It's basically they ask us for a position and we provide it. We consult with them and we can tell them if we feel, they're over or understaffed, but they're the ones that are really in the driver's seat, so to speak.
One follow-on then. Well, Mr. Fortney, the interventions, if I'm using the right term, that these staff provide would appear to have potentially real programmatic and financial benefits. So do you actually develop an ROI, keeping people out of jail or out of mental health, or the diversion practices? Do you track it in that regard?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think it's probably been a couple of years ago, but I did present an ROI to the commission that kind of gave a breakdown on a particular set of time about what we were estimating. There's a lot of assumptions that go into that because we have to look at what is the cost of someone going to jail for a day. There's marginal costs with that. There's costs of going to the ER for a bed day. So there's a lot of assumptions built into that. It's kind of hard to really give a true estimate, but yes, we have looked at that.
I'd be interested in learning more. We can do that offline.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any further questions or comments?
Consent's fine with me.
Is there any objection to moving this to consent?
Yeah, if you just provide,
Providing the language of the MOU in the interim with the opportunity for people to take it off if there are concerns with the language? Okay,
find out about we've approved that second one for the Northeast.
Yes, I will do that, and I will also get you the chart that you requested.
Okay, thank you.
all right, we'll put this on consent pending the language. Thank you, Mr. Fortney. And finally, will the clerk read item number 6 into the record?
Resolution number 015-23, consider authorizing the acquisition by condemnation of the rights-of-way and easements necessary for the 183rd Street Shoulder Safety and Structural Improvement Project between Metcalf Avenue and Knoll Avenue.
All right, Mr. Sims is back with us from Public Works to discuss this item. Good afternoon, Mr. Sims.
Good afternoon, Ryan Sims with Public Works. We have been in the process of acquiring right-of-way since August of last year for the safety improvements to 183rd Street. As of today, 6 of the 7 property owners from whom the county needs right-of-way have accepted our offer. This includes one of the owners whom we had previously listed for condemnation, agreed to the county's offer earlier this week. So this leaves one owner remaining for condemnation who owns 2 tracts that we still need right-of-way. We are still in contact with this owner and hope to negotiate an offer for the frontage needed along their property. There are still 2 to 3 months of utility relocations that will need to take place in advance of the road safety improvements. They can't begin until all the right-of-way has been acquired. Our plan is to construct the road safety improvements later this summer. So in order to ensure that all of the right-of-way is obtained in a timely manner, the condemnation process needs to get underway. And if there are any other questions at this time, I'd be glad to answer them.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Sims. Questions regarding this, Mr. Ashcraft? Commissioner Ashcraft, I apologize.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sims, can you give us some sense of what the source of the disagreement is in terms of acquiring these 2 pieces?
Yeah, so in the past, it's generally been a financial compensation. And in this case, it's more of the overall impacts to the property from this project, namely the utility impacts, the relocations of their facilities further into the county's frontage or on their property proper itself. So we are doing our best to try to put our utility companies in contact with this particular landowner to help either ease their concerns about where the future facilities are going to be placed on their property.
Do you think you'll have resolution?
You know, I hope so, but, you know, I can never say for sure either way, so that's why we want to bring this to the board to help facilitate the process, should we not be able to come to terms.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Hara, then Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you. This is in my district, and I've had a conversation with Mr. Pedig, and as I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but that on some of these properties, you're actually doing curb and gutter to mitigate as the disruption for trees, et cetera?
Correct.
Okay, so the county, I feel like the county has worked very hard on accommodating the landowners, and this is always a struggle. And I will tell you, because I bike out in that area, that these improvements are desperately needed, and it was caused because of the island annexation of Overland Park, and that in that area there's a lot of development, and 183rd Street from Mission to Knoll has already been improved, well, actually constructed, because there wasn't even a road there. And this is just an example of island annexation creating a lot of expense for the county, but it is sorely needed.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to say something similar to what Commissioner O'Hara said about, in my experience, the county has always been extremely accommodating to try and find a way through these disagreements with property owners. And you know, we don't like to get to the point where we have to have this kind of resolution, but as Commissioner O'Hara said, when it's for the greater safety of the whole community, that's what has to be done. But I commend the staff for their hard work to find a collaborative way through these situations. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just echo the points made by Commissioner O'Hara and Commissioner Hanslick. We hope that this matter can be resolved outside of the condemnation process, but that is a process that affects people's legal rights, and there's a timetable to that per statute. So getting the ball rolling doesn't preclude the opportunity for agreement, but to make sure that we can have this project move forward in a timely fashion, which at the end of the day is about safety, we have to at least get the ball rolling on the project. So I appreciate your all's work on that. Any objection to moving this to consent?
I object.
You object? Okay, we'll keep this on action then. All right, with that, that concludes the items on our printed agenda. We're adjourned. Everybody have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.